Good morning. My name is Max Weselcouch. I direct the Moelis Institute for Affordable Housing Policy at the NYU Furman Center. And I'm going to share some findings from our recent State of New York City's Housing and Neighborhoods report to hopefully add some citywide context to your discussions. So thank you to the board for inviting me here today.
Thank you to Harvey and Shayla for suggesting it.
And just everything that I'm presenting today is in our book, The State of New York City's Housing and Neighborhoods, which is available online. We're also happy to send hard copies to anyone who would like one. So in the report, we show that over the past 8 years, rent increases have far surpassed income growth. Between 2005 and 2013, the median rent jumped by nearly 12%, while the median income of renter households increased by only 2% as measured in real terms. And just to clarify, this is looking at all renters in the city, not just the stabilized renters. In 2013, about 54% of renter households were rent burdened, facing housing costs equal to at least 30% or more of their income. So for a household earning the median renter income of about $41,000 in 2013, that household would be able to afford an apartment renting for $1,036 or less if paying no less than 30% of their income on rent. We show that this share of households who are rent burdened has stopped increasing in recent years, but it's remained very high compared to historical levels. As recently as 2000, just 43% of renters were rent burdened. At every income level that we looked at, a larger share of renters were burdened in 2013 than they had been in 2000. However, not all households are equally likely to be rent burdened. In 2000, nearly 80% of very low income renters were rent burdened, with about 42% of households making between 30% and 50% of AMI being severely rent burdened or facing housing costs over 50% of their monthly income. In 2013, nearly 55% of renter households earning between 51% and 80% of AMI, which is roughly about $47,000 to $61,000 for a three-person household, were rent burdened, with nearly 10% facing a severe rent burden, again paying over 50% of their income on housing. There's considerable variation across neighborhoods in rent levels. One of the frustrating things when we look at census rent data is that it captures everyone together. So it's the market rate renters, the stabilized renters, renters in subsidized units or in public housing. So this year we also looked at the median asking rent by community district as reported by StreetEasy. And we found that the median asking rent of an apartment advertised for rent on StreetEasy in 2013 exceeded $3,000 in 8 neighborhoods, mostly in Manhattan. There certainly are neighborhoods in the city where rents are still more affordable, but as I'm about to show you, those neighborhoods lack some certain other opportunity measures. We know that neighborhood conditions affect residents. For example, research shows that exposure to crime can cause stress that results in poor health or well-being outcomes. New York City's serious crime rates have remained steady in recent years, following a dramatic decline over the past 2 decades. But that overall decline masks some neighborhood variation. In several neighborhoods, crime rates are more than double the citywide average, and these neighborhoods tend to be the ones where rent levels are lower. We see a similar trend when we look at the share of students performing a grade level in public schools. Again, in some of the lower cost neighborhoods, like in central Brooklyn, central Harlem, and the South Bronx, fewer than 1 in 5 students performed a grade level in math in 2014. Finally, the majority of New Yorkers rely on public transit to commute to work each day, and indeed public transportation can provide a lot of access to opportunities that might not exist in neighborhoods. However, again, in some of these lower cost neighborhoods, we see that residents have less access to transit and fewer of them are using public transit to commute. So thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
So I'm curious about the source of data, the Street Easy.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming that what Street Easy does is it would include legal rents, preferential rents, and market rents all together because it's what the landlords are asking for. Is that why you think it's a useful data source?
We think it's useful if we think about someone who's out on the market trying to find a new apartment, right? Because that's what they face. Is it could be any of these things. It could be a totally market rate, non-stabilized apartment. It could be a legal stabilized apartment, though they're not usually advertised that way. And it could be a preferential rent. I should say, we know that not every apartment that's available for rent is included in these figures. There are certainly some small landlords who might be putting signs in their windows, and there's just no way right now for us to capture that. But we think that this is at least a good indication of maybe the first step that someone might look at.
And obviously, it's possible that some of the rents being sought on Street Easy are actually in excess of the rent-stabilized rent because this doesn't account for that.
Sure.
But it's an interesting source. Thanks for sharing it. Other questions?
Interesting. On the rent burden on the people at 30 to 50% of AMI, can you tell what the number of people we're talking about in that universe? And can you just, is there a way to look at them to be subsidized or not subsidized housing? Because I know you mentioned there are people in public housing or mental illness or that data, but how we can parse that out?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the new HVS isn't available yet, which will allow us to unpack a lot of that. I think like all of you, we're hoping that it arrives any day now. So this is using the National American Community Survey, which doesn't allow us to parse out those groups. We've done we tried to correct for some of that, not in this figure, just kind of behind the scenes, but we're not confident enough in it until the HVS.
Do you have overall numbers of people who fit those categories?
We do, yeah. I'd be happy to share that with the board.
I'm interested because we know the numbers of people who, let's say, live in public housing, and we know what incomes they're likely to be at, so we can parse out those numbers. We can actually think about what's left over.
Yep.
Because it's interesting for us to think of the average stabilized households making $40,000 a year, and so how much of them are really severely rent burdened in relationship to where they live, and then what the opportunities are, for income versus expenses, and that's part of what is our calculation.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share the raw numbers. I can send them, follow up with Andrew today.
Yeah, what's the echo?
The air fish?
Your feedback.
Oh, feedback?
Am I sitting too close to the mic?
And I noticed today Furman released another report about the increase in renters in 11 cities across the country, and New York being one of those cities becoming much more a renter city just because of the rent burden. Can you talk about what you found in New York in relationship to rent burden and renters in general?
Right. So we looked at the central cities of the next 10 largest MSAs, and New York has always had a high renter population, and we see that the renter population is growing in some other cities. And one common thread across the cities that we looked at is that low-income renters, a very high share of low-income renters are rent burdened, right? It's rents, as I quoted, the $1,036 a month is an affordable rent for the median renter in New York, and that's true, even in places like Washington D.C. and Boston and San Francisco, but even in Dallas and Houston, it's hard for low-income renters everywhere. Where New York stood out was when we looked at moderate-income renters, so the middle class. In other cities, there are plenty of affordable rental units available for, two-income, entry-level household. in New York, we see a much higher rent burden, and that's reflected here in the moderate income category, where we see about 20% of moderate income renters, so between about 80 and 130% of AMI are rent burdened.
This may be a stretch, but has any study been done to compare New York to cities like London, Singapore, Hong Kong, and that? Because we're a global city and we're not Dallas any longer.
Yeah, so we haven't pursued that just because the differences in data make it really difficult.
Max, the numbers you're using are based on gross rent or contract rent when you do the
This is based on gross rent.
Gross rent.
Yeah, which is the HUD standard, is gross rent and gross income.
And I just want to highlight that you guys also do have a whole bunch of reports based on areas, and it breaks down like how many are rent stabilized and all of these other data by community districts,
Yeah,
which are super useful.
For each page, we break down the rental stock by community district and rent levels.
What you found in neighborhoods around the city? I mean, we've heard data a few minutes ago talking about the deregulation of units, mostly in Manhattan, but really in all 4 boroughs.
Yeah,
What
so
kind of data did you find?
again, because we don't have the HVS and we haven't had any luck with getting unit level data from the state, we actually didn't publish any numbers about the number of deregulated units by community district this year, because the most recent data we have is from 2011, and that, just as a New Yorker, that feels so unsatisfying. Yeah.
We had requested in our memo, the 2015 Income and Affordability Study follow-up memo number 2. We did get by borough and by community district 2014 HVS data run by HPD, medium household income, medium contract rent, and medium gross rent for stabilized apartments. So that stuff is all there. We didn't ask for the number of units, but those are all at the subborough levels. Page 3 of that memo,
Pages 2 and 3 of the page 12.
which we can give you a copy of.
Could you highlight, were there any boroughs or any community districts from the last HVS that you saw, that had a great loss of rent stabilized units? And what kind of people live in those communities?
So we found, I think much of what Brian was discussing as I walked in, which was that the greatest loss was in Manhattan below 96th Street. But that, of course, was, now we're looking 4 years ago. So I think the trends may have changed in the meantime.
Thank you so much. It's
Thank
very
you.
helpful to have great information presented in different ways, and we really appreciate your attendance and coming. Oh, yeah. So as far as other sort of board information, as those of us who were present at the public hearings last year, and I just have to note that we have an interesting striped solid thing going on across the table. Not that that really should be part of the record, but it's just interesting. So,
Dr. Seuss stripes
Andrew's with us, right?
apparently so, and I'm kind of nothing like I'm all crazy. There we go. So for this year, because what ended up happening last year, as everyone will recall, is as the evening went longer, we felt compelled to have everyone's testimony shrink from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. And that felt sort of unfair, but it also felt like the 2-minute folks seemed to be able to say what they wanted to say. So our notion this year was to begin at 2 minutes, just so it was fair across persons, and we didn't have that awkward moment, like when do we decide to shift to 2 minutes? So that's what I'd like to propose. Open up for discussion. Okay, all right.
No, just make it aware. Just with the public hearing, we will be providing food for folks for each one. So just to give you a heads up on that. And I don't know if there's anything else. And if you have any questions, Mel? No.
Now, that
The
would be
members of the
excellent.
board.
If you get the city to give us that budget, all the people who are mad at me at the preliminary vote, I might suddenly get popular again.
We talk about turnout, we'd like free food.
So, but they're, nothing exciting, but sandwich platters, that kind of thing. So we will,
And some veggie sandwiches,
long nights
too.
and long
These
days.
sandwiches too.
So if anybody has any questions about it, I know we have new people on the board.
And we're also excited that we have interpreters who were recommended by Shayla, so we're really pleased to have excellent interpreters who, so.
Just to also highlight, I just wanted to highlight that we've had especially in the Bronx, the West African community is growing rapidly, and a whole bunch, we've had some requests for Seneca interpretation, and so I think we as CASA are gonna figure out how to make that happen, but just so that folks are aware that people might not, even Spanish is not the
No, I know. I was thinking about that.
language.
I mean, in Queens, ideally, we would have Mandarin, Cantonese, et cetera. It is impossible in New York to truly fulfill all of the language needs, but again, at least for the high percentage of Spanish speakers, we will have, again, a group Shayla recommended, so we can ensure that they will be excellent.
And I wanted to maybe that's something I don't know how we're letting people know when they're starting to register. I feel like last year was a little awkward because people got there and didn't know that they couldn't give testimony in Spanish, and so I'm trying to figure out a way maybe we can I don't know if people sign in differently or how does that happen so it's not that awkward weird thing that happened last year because that was just inappropriate.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that was the case, but because we certainly let people know.
Signs in Spanish that said if you need an interpreter, alert the staff at the registration desk.
So we-
Talking about what people actually came down to do it,
People who hadn't, because I think Danielle's point is anyone who'd written down.
So sign in if you want to speak, and then if you say that you need an interpreter, I put it on the paper.
We know up
We
front
know up
that they need
front.
an interpreter.
But you have to-
got up and would be confused that she had to interpret, that weird thing that happened.
So maybe what we can do is, since it sounds like anyone who's signing in is indicating that they need an interpreter, so what we can make sure is that the interpreter is
I
working
think those
closely with
people did
Danielle.
not indicate they needed an interpreter is what the problem was, but there were signs up telling people that they needed to say that.
Maybe what we can also
We-
do is at the very beginning, I can ask the interpreter
Well,
to
let me just
to
jump in.
announce themselves in Spanish and say that if the interpretation is needed, the person's available, and to ask anyone who hasn't indicated in their sign-up that they need interpretation to please go back and do so. Just, I think that if the combination of those things.
Registering people are on 8, and you made that one announcement, if anyone wants to say
So we can have at 8 o'clock if there are still, I think we're hoping with the 2 minutes that everyone will get in, but if not, then we can have the interpreter at 8 o'clock when I make that announcement in Spanish and indicate that if anyone needs interpretation, they should, because I guess at that point, I think people aren't signing up anymore, they're just coming up to speak. And so I guess the interpreter
they're
can
not
just be on
signing up
hand,
anymore.
and they can, but they'll know because they'll know who the person is, so hopefully we can.
It's
easier this year with an interpreter who does this all the time.
Absolutely.
To get up and
Absolutely.
not make it seem like the person is all of a sudden asking for something.
We are asking them to arrive early so they can be at the registration desk when people come.
Yeah,
So
and that'll help
hopefully
too,
will-
obviously.
Yes.
Certainly in the Bronx, we'll have that. so.
Right.
And will it be recorded?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Would we get a way for us to sort of go back and look at video?
If you want to do that, you can absolutely do
I was
that.
thinking from a note-taking perspective.
No, the
If you want to do that,
videos,
it is, we have a
Yeah.
notate, we have a person who.
There'll be a notation.
Absolutely.
there's a
he's fabulous.
transcript, but that takes a while to get done, but the videos will be pretty quickly turned around, so you'll have the ability to watch them.
There's some form of notes for reference.
Yes.
Yes, we
Yes.
can, yes.
Can I ask about the email notification? We're now collecting people's emails, so are they getting notification to be able to sign up for these hearings? Because we're collecting emails.
Yeah, we're going to send out another email blast.
And is that going out just in English, or is that going out in English and another language?
It's correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, can they sign up for the ones that are done in Spanish through the? Can they do that?
Not familiar with any option. We'd use the nyc.gov system, which offers newsletters from a variety of different agencies. As far as I know, I don't know of other options for language.
I mean, could we look into that? Because I know in NYC.gov,
There's a translation option through that system.
Right.
I'm almost positive there is.
so if there's a way to ensure that we send out email notifications that we can, because what I've seen it happen, and when I get these emails, it's like English on top and Spanish on the bottom in the email, so we can get it just simultaneously translated, it would make it easier.
I mean, we'll look into it.
Thank you. And can I ask you, how many people have signed up for the email notifications?
What was our last one? 9
I
something?
guess as of about 2 weeks ago, it was about 900 and change.
That's great. And signing up for hearings, have we people started signing up for the hearings yet?
We haven't had that much sign up, to be honest.
I don't know if we put it out, I don't have seen if we sent out notifications.
Notices, the
It's
information's
going
out.
out. It's up. We'll send another email blast around, but
Could you add us to the email blast so we get those, we could forward them
actually
out?
we can't. You have to go on and do
sign
it.
up.
You have to sign up.
I haven't gotten any emails.
Yeah, we have to sign up to do it.
Yeah, to sign up, it's on a link is on our homepage. It's handled by the nyc.gov website.
You have to read through a whole bunch of other things you can sign up for and find the right one.
Yeah, we're on the list.
All right, any other topics for discussion?
What's the follow-up on HR? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what Andrew said at the very beginning is they've compiled a fair amount of the information. It's in front of legal now, being evaluated, and as soon as that's done, we'll send it out to everyone on the board. And because they couldn't be here today, if in reading their responses to the questions, there are any follow-up questions that really are important, then send them through to Andrew. The one thing we do have to be mindful of is, in a sense, obviously, we can't subpoena them to come here, nor can we subpoena them to answer our questions, so we have to be thoughtful about getting the information that we need, but not kind of torturing them in a way that makes them feel like we're asking for more than is reasonable, so let's just try and balance that. All right, motion to adjourn?
Sorry.
Second.
Second? All in favor? All right.
Thank you.
I will see everyone at the first public hearing.